Well, it's that time of year again. Christmas time is here. You ever get around to thinking about the times it was when you was growing up and your grandparents and all the people that's went on? Well, I do. And I'm going to share a few stories with you. Now, I growed up in a place where Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia come together. And right here, Cumberland Gap is right dead center of it. Coal mining camps in Kentucky, beautiful Tennessee Valley below you, and Virginia. So it was kind of hard hunting here when growing up. You couldn't afford license in every state, but that's just the way it was. This is where I growed up and worked all my working life, above ground and under it. Well, a few weeks or a few days after Thanksgiving, we'd start trying to get a Christmas tree. Now, we wouldn't go to no store. We'd head back in these old mountains, preferably an old strip job. And if we was in Tennessee, we'd go down in these old valleys and find these cedar trees. That's the way it was. And we'd find us a prime cut we wanted to fit the house, and we'd drag it out of them woods, and we'd trim it up. That was an every year tradition. And I growed up around these old mining camps when I was a little old bitty thing. My dad worked in the coal mines. And our trees would look something like this. Just a little old cedar tree or pine tree, homemade decorations most of the time, of things that we made, the kids had made in school, me and my brother, sister. And stuff like this was passed down. Yes, my dad drove an old finger mashing Ford. Everybody'd ask me in these videos, what's this finger mashing mean? What's that mean? Well, it don't really have to be a Ford. It's just any old two-door car that when you got a whole bunch of kids in the family and everybody's trying to get in the back of them kids, somebody's going to get their finger mashed. It's always that way. And I had mine mashed many a time. But that's the way it was. And we'd head downtown here. Mom and Dad take us down here. We'd see the Christmas parade. It was so loud, the beating in your eardrums. They marched down the street when you're a little old bitty thing. Watching the people march and parade down through here and all the loud noise. We just wanted to see Santa Claus. But when he seen him, he'd be throwing out candy as helpers would. But I never did get much of it over the years. I'd always get knocked down by the bigger kids, knock you down, run over you to get a piece of candy. Well, after the parade, this was the Kmart or Walmart of the day, an old Woolworth, or 5 a dime. Here an old 88-cent store. Growed up, places like this. This is our Christmas gift. And of course, Dad would have to go up on Cumberland Mountain to old Cudjoe's Cave, get a carton of cigarettes. Always done that. Head down through the gap. He's showing us places where he growed up. That's where he growed up, born and raised. And he loved this gap. He'd show us the old places where he growed up. Of course, they're all gone now, all tore down. But he'd talk to me, tell me all these little stories. Loved to tell us these stories. Where he was born, how hard he had it when he was a little bitty thing. He could remember in the wintertime when it was real cold and the wind blowing, that snow would blow through the walls in the house. It was so cold. He'd tell me all these little old hard stories back during the Depression, and they were true. Him and his brothers, they made everything they wanted to do and always into something. And that's where I get all these little stories of the little rebel of the Gap. He's told me so many stories over the years. This is his beloved home. But anyway, we'd head on up to Mama's. I call her Mammy, my Mama. And this was the most favorite place in the world for me when I was a little old bitty thing. All the time, year round, it didn't matter. This is where I could run free. Didn't have to worry about getting a whooping too much, because Mammy would never let nobody whoop them grandkids. There's no way. And when you got hungry, there was always a big old pot of soup beans on the stove. And if you're lucky, you'd get a pan of taters. But it's always a big old pot of soup beans, 24/7 on that stove, and some cornbread. So you never went hungry around Mama's house. And we'd sit around, they'd tell me stories. We'd make popcorn and stuff around the fireplace and just share stuff. But when we're just me and Mama and the grandkids, the cousins, and my brother and sister, and we got kind of rowdy, Mama would know how to settle us down. She'd pull out them stories on us, especially the old favorite, Rawhead and Bloody Bones. This would settle you down, but as you got older, it didn't bother you as much. But when you were a little bitty thing, it would scare you to death. It got dark. Around the house, things got real quiet when you heard them kind of stories. And you wouldn't dare go to the outhouse up behind the house when it got dark. Oh no, you'd be scared to death. So we'd all have to use the old slop jar. Take turns on that. That's the way it was. And I'd lay in that old bed at night looking at that back window that didn't have no curtains, and I'd see stuff like that. And I would just scare myself to sleep. Finally just exhausted. Well, here in the mountains of southern Appalachia, we didn't get much snow, but we did get it every once in a while. Not very often, and it was nice to see. We loved it, especially kids. We loved to see the snow, because it didn't come very often. Even around the old mining camps, it was a hard life for people who had to work for a living, and I didn't like the cold weather, but I did like the snow. And a lot of people had it hard in them days. It got real cold. They didn't have a lot of money. I've seen this many a time. People picking up coal on the side of the railroad that fell off the railroad cars as it went through to heat their homes. I've seen this many a time. And a lot of people, as bad as we've had it, there's a lot of people had it a lot less fortunate than we did. They lived in some rough conditions, but they were happy. But some of them didn't have much at all. They never even had a Christmas. It didn't matter what race you was, what color you was, what sex you was. Some people had a hard time, especially with a bunch of little kids. So the churches would all get together that time of year, and they would try to check on them year round. But this time of year especially, during the holidays, we'd make up these treat baskets and boxes to feed a family for about a week. And they really appreciated that, people did. Even the kids got in on it, making treat bags for everybody. I know me and my little brother, we love making these treat bags. We like getting them too. There's usually an orange, an apple, candy bar, candy cane in it, some nuts. But they was nice. And we would go around the neighborhood with my dad and people of the church, handing out these little bags and treats to people that needed it, less fortunate. And they really loved it too. They loved to see us coming. Now back in them days, there wasn't that many social programs, and especially people that's widowed and their men died in the mines, having a hard time. But especially the elderly. They were on their own. We'd check on them and give them what they could. And these kids, these hungry kids, a house full of kids and no man in the house, they really used it. They really needed it. Now for us kids, my brothers, my sister, we'd look in these Montgomery Ward wish books, we call them. and dream of the stuff that we could possibly get, but we know we'd never get it. But we loved to look at them before they went to the outhouse. But now my dad, he was fortunate enough, he worked in the mines most of his life. And Mom and Dad made sure that we got something for Christmas. Might not be what we wanted, but they made sure we got something. And I love them so much for that. Now growing up too, after Christmas, my dad really got good in church and tried to keep the family in church. I can remember a little old bitty thing that they would pray in the new year at the church, and I'd go with him. Of course, I'd fall asleep in the pew, and he'd just carry me home. But what I miss most about the holidays is being around my elders, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. Most of them's gone, and I miss their stories and being with them so much. But the real reason for this time of year is, of course, our Savior, Jesus. Happy birthday, Jesus. So I want to thank y'all for watching. Y'all have a safe and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So God bless every one of you, and I'll see you next time.